We were married for 7 years, and she spent $10,000 on junk food in a year, gained 80 pounds, and now says I'm too fat for sex after my knee injury, make me gain some pounds. I need help recovering, and she shows me zero support. Should I divorce her? For context, my wife and I never want to get married. Both of us came from abusive homes. The abuse was mostly because our parents hated each other, but didn't want to get divorced and took their anger out on us. We both felt like marriage could trap us to someone after they became abusive, and it scared us. We started dating in high school. After we graduated, I worked dead-end jobs trying to save up money for a few years to be able to move out, but never could. I joined the military to finally get away from my parents. My then girlfriend, now wife, and I had a long-distance relationship for a few years with me, coming down to visit around once a month on 4-day weekends while she went to college. I was lucky enough to get stationed within the millage radius. She was living in a college dorm for the first few years and was close to graduating, but suddenly had to move out since her father decided not to co-sign for her and made her move back in. The abuse got really bad. He had tracking on her car and would remotely make it honk when she went somewhere he didn't like. He wouldn't let her go anywhere besides work, school, or home. Her life was very bad. I told her that if we got married, we could get a house on base and she could go to college here. The Army would increase my pay to accommodate this. At first, she said no since she didn't want to be locked in with someone, but one day when I got home from a week in the field, I turned on my phone and was greeted by hundreds of texts and missed calls. She had packed a suitcase with a few clothes, her birth certificate, and her SS card, and was living at my mom's house. My parents divorced soon after I left and could only take their anger out on each other. They became really chill once they were apart and even apologized for everything they put me through. It's not a perfect relationship, but it's really not part of this story, so I'll skip it. I came down with a 4-day weekend pass and we got married in the courthouse. She came up and we lived on post. The abuse was way worse than I originally thought. She refused to live anywhere except on Posey because she wanted to be in a super secure area her father and stepmother couldn't find her. She had panic attacks whenever she saw cars that looked like theirs. The first 6 months were the worst. She would cry herself to sleep every night. Every morning I would wake up to her quietly sobbing. I would go to work, and when I came back, she would still be quietly sobbing in the corner I left her in, but somehow the house was trashed. I would cook food and beg her to eat it and drink water. She would reluctantly. Then she would cry herself to sleep, and the process would begin again. I got her into therapy and signed her up for college. That seemed to help some, but she was still a mess. Fast forward, and we've been married for 7 years. She has never held a job, citing her mental health as the issue. It was fine since I was very good with money and could provide for both of us. Her mental health got a little better, but has never been good. At one point, she gained 80 pounds ordering Uber Eats and Instacart. Apparently, she didn't want to go outside, so she needed food delivered. She wanted to self-harm, but couldn't do it in normal ways since I would see and make her talk to her therapist about it. Instead, she had incredibly greasy, unhealthy food delivered to our house and would eat it to give herself a stomachache. She spent over $10,000 over the course of a year doing this. I didn't notice because she said she wanted to feel like she contributed to the house by taking care of the finances. I trusted her to do that and never questioned her about it. My fault, I know. She was also slightly underweight by about 5 to 10 pounds when we first got married, and my mom was overweight and constantly told me to never question a woman gaining weight. So I waited too long to start asking questions about that too. Recently, I was chaptered from the military. A very long story short, she started constantly attempting self-delete, and because I was busy taking care of her so much, I was non-deployable for too long. They had to let me go. I lined up a job as a cop for when I got out, but ended up tearing my ACL in a motorcycle accident. That meant I needed to get it repaired and go through physical therapy before I could start the job. In the meantime, I had to move back in with my mom, and my wife had to move back in with her mom. Neither house was large enough for both of us to live. When it happened, my wife was very upset, but didn't seem to give me much sympathy. More anger than anything. She started to act better when I called her on it, though. Later, she told me she didn't want to have sex since I had gained weight since the accident. Not being able to walk/exercise and stress eating from all your plans on how to survive crumbling will do that to you. I've gained about 20 pounds in the last 2 months. Side note, she has never lost the weight and has even put more on. She is currently 50 pounds over the highest weight she should be for her height and age. I do have a belly, but I can still bench press over 300 pounds and you can still see most of my muscles. Today, I got a letter from the VA saying that I would only be given 15 physical therapy appointments. The physical therapist had told me earlier that I would probably need at least 40. I went to the physical therapist to come up with a new plan since obviously the old one needed to change. When I talked to my wife about it, before I could even finish talking, she got angry and said we couldn't afford it. She then said that I would need to do more Uber because her part-time job couldn't cover it. I got angry that it seemed she only cared about how my issues affected her. After about a half-hour fight, she apologized and said that her mom is still abusive and that she is jealous that I get to live with a mom who isn't. Her mom yells at her sometimes, but it's nothing compared to what her dad and stepmother did though. Not saying it's good, but there's really nothing I can do right now. The only jobs I'm qualified for require me to be able-bodied, and I'm not right now. She also isn't qualified to get a job that can pay bills because she's only worked fast food jobs for short stints and has a 3-year employment gap. Since we've gotten back, she has quit 3 part-time jobs for various reasons, and I feel like the burden to fix everything is all on me. I'm usually fine with that because I loved her and cared for her, but over these last few months, I feel like she doesn't care for me at all, only what I provide. It's made me fall out of love with her. Would I be the a-hole for divorcing her? Best comments. Here's a hard fact. Being a victim doesn't make you a good person. You've tried your best, but your care hasn't translated into love on her end. You can feel good for getting her out of one bad situation and trying to help her, but you're not going to turn her into the loving, caring partner you want her to be. Now that you've realized this, the resentment will build and eventually turn into anger. You try to lift her up and it hasn't worked. All that's left is for her to drag you down. For both your sakes, get out of there. You don't have a partner you can rely on. You have an overgrown, spoiled child. She isn't an overgrown, spoiled child. She is a highly traumatized person who was never taught love, respect, and responsibility. Those are pretty big differences. It is accurate to say OP doesn't have a partner, though. She's been spoiled by OP's coddling, so she is now an overgrown, spoiled child on top of a highly traumatized person. She's had plenty of time to do therapy to learn love, respect, and responsibility, and instead she took advantage, financially and emotionally abused him, and is ruining his life. She sounds like a user and a perpetual victim. She also sounds quite entitled and wants to continue the cycle of abuse. Update number 1, 1 month and 23 days after the first post. To start, I told my wife that we needed to go to couples counseling or get divorced. She freaked out and had a panic attack. She threatened self-delete, and it became a whole thing for several days. I talked to a lawyer to start the divorce process, but I put it on hold when she agreed to couples counseling. When we went to our first appointment, I got to admit I was nervous. Several people I knew said that couples counselors will simply blame the man for everything and never take anything into account the man says at all. From the first session, I found that to be completely untrue. She seemed to be on my side on almost everything, and my wife seemed to be listening and understanding my issues for the first time in a long time. The week after the appointment, my wife started an argument about me not being able to do much outside because standing on my torn ACL was painful. During the argument, she said that I was an idiot for taking care of her while she had her mental health problems, and that just because I was stupid and took care of her did not mean she was obligated to do the same for me. I told her that was hurtful, and she apologized. During our next therapy session a week later, she said the same thing again. The therapist told her that she needed individual therapy because no relationship could survive if she felt that way. My wife cried and said she had been in therapy for 7 years and doesn't think she can change. That was when I knew it was completely over. I told my wife as much the next day, and she threatened to delete me, then go on a crime spree and delete herself. It was a manic 10-minute rambling phone call, but that was the gist of it. For what I gathered from it, she wanted to delete me for leaving her. Then she said that was too easy and would go on a crime spree instead because she needed to be arrested since she can't take care of herself and thought prison would be a free alternative. Then she said something about prison probably being a terrible place to stay long term and it would be better to just delete herself quickly. I called the police and she was put into a mental institution. The next day, I awoke from a phone call with a caller ID healthcare. I answered, and she was calling from the ward to yell at me for calling the police. She said I ruined her life because she might lose her job and now I would be on the hook for a ton of medical debt since she couldn't pay for her visit. I hung up and called my attorney, but he was on vacation for a week. Since then, things have been pretty quiet. I heard that she is out of the ward, but nothing further. I got my surgery to replace my ACL. I'm doing great in physical therapy. The doctor was impressed by my recovery, but cautioned me against going too fast since it would be bad to tear it again at this stage. My lawyer has been back from vacation for a while, and my wife is being served this week. I'm hoping that the divorce will be smooth and painless, but I seriously doubt it. She says she wants to fight about everything. Best comments. I wish you the best, and I think you are better off without the wife, and maybe your soon-to-be ex can get the help she needs. But she has got to really want the help, or nothing will ever change for her. Thanks. I know I'll get through this. Right now is just a rough patch. As soon as the divorce is over and my leg is healed, it'll be smooth sailing. I got a job lined after I'm back on my feet, literally, and then I'll be able to move on. This was your only real choice, and you made it right. When someone threatens to harm themselves or others, always take it seriously and notify the authorities. Wife's mental state was broken long ago by her parents, and OP doesn't have to be the one to save her. Good luck. Update number 2, 1 month and 27 days after the last update. It's been a while. Some stuff has happened, but not as much as I would have liked. I really want all of this to be over. Divorce is going slow. My wife said that she was going to draw this out for as long as possible to hurt me, and that her rich father was going to be paying for a top-of-the-line lawyer to make this stretch out for years. She told me he hated me and wanted to watch me suffer. This turned out to be a lie. She is representing herself. Not sure if he pulled a fast one on her, or if it was a bluff to get me to sign a settlement, where I basically gave her everything we owned and almost all of my future paychecks for the next several years, but it doesn't matter. My lawyer easily fact-checked her before we went to court. We had our first court hearing. We waited several hours just for the judge to say, "Did you give her discovery? Did you give him discovery? All right, come back in 30 days if you can't figure this out on your own." It was less than 5 minutes. As for settling out of court, I don't think that will happen. She feels she's entitled to basically everything. A lot of people we knew got divorced in the military when we were stationed in states that heavily favored the wife. She wants a similar outcome to them. Her problem is that we don't have kids, and we're in an at-fault divorce state. She has committed financial abuse, emotional abuse, and physical abuse, all of which hurts her standing. It's also important to note that my pay right now is from military benefits that are illegal to garnish, so she legally cannot get any of it. Her trying to take everything like she wants would be near impossible, but she's determined to try. We'll see what happens, but I'm not hopeful she'll relent before we need to go back to court. Anyway, that's my update.